Welcome to the Summer 2021 IREAD 3 Pretest Workshop. My name is Kelly Conley, and I am a Senior Assessment Specialist in the Office of Student Assessment. The purpose of the training is to help Corporation Test Coordinators, or CTCs, ensure a successful test administration for students participating in the IREAD 3 this summer. School test coordinators, test administrators, principals, and other educators involved in summer testing may find this information useful as well. During this session, I will review some available resources and CTC responsibilities, provide an abbreviated overview of IDOE's remote testing guidance for virtual learners, share some lessons learned from the spring 2021 IREAD 3 test administration, and discuss details and processes related to before, during, and after testing. We will start off by reviewing some important resources that can support you throughout testing and some of your key responsibilities as CTCs. This slide outlines some key responsibilities for all CTCs and STCs when preparing for any test administration. A full checklist of responsibilities is available in Appendix I of the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual. Review the policy manual, this slide, and contact our office if you have any questions. This slide highlights where to access most key information that you will need as a CTC. In addition to IDOE staff, the Indiana Assessments Policy Manual references testing policies, procedures, and protocols applicable to the IREAD 3 assessment. Test windows, forms, recent listserv messages, and other resources are located in the Test Coordinator corner in Moodle. Recorded trainings, online user guides, test administration manuals, and other assessment resources for IREAD 3 are located on the Indiana Assessment Portal. If you are unable to find the answer to your question or locate a certain resource, please contact our office so we can provide the appropriate guidance. While you may have significantly fewer students participating in this summer's IREAD 3 retest than during the spring window, please keep IDOE's remote testing guidance nearby as you work to schedule students for testing. Since summative assessments are not permitted to be administered remotely, you will need to consider how to plan for test administration of any remote learners. The ideas noted on this slide are not exhaustive and are not intended to be limiting. CTCs are welcome to request special flexibility for any unique circumstance. Just complete the test administration considerations request form linked at the bottom of this slide. We reviewed many of these before testing activities during the spring pretest workshop. I will briefly touch on each one and encourage you to contact our office if you have specific questions about any of these reminders and processes. The next few slides provide some key test security reminders for CTCs. As CTCs, you most likely completed these test security related tasks ahead of the spring IREAD 3 window. However, if you are new to the CTC role, or if you have any new staff who will assist with the summer retest, please review this list once more and make sure everything is complete. You will need to confirm that any staff involved in testing have completed all the appropriate trainings. CTCs and STCs must have training attendance records for all trainings noted here. CTCs and STCs should also confirm completion of these protocols and processes before testing begins. It is likely that any staff serving as a TA this summer has already completed the requisite training and are familiar with Cambium's test delivery system. However, in the event that new staff will administer the IREAD 3 retest this summer, please ensure these individuals complete the appropriate training ahead of scheduled testing. Any staff who've not yet completed these trainings and plan to serve as TAs this summer must first complete these trainings before initiating any student test sessions. No action is required for any TAs who completed these trainings ahead of the spring window. These individuals have already fulfilled this requirement. IDOE does not require this pretest workshop training, but we strongly recommend it for any CTC whose school has at least one student participating in this summer's IREAD 3 retest. Earlier this school year, IDOE and Cambium hosted several optional on-demand trainings to the Indiana Assessment Portal to help school staff become more familiar with Cambium's various testing systems ahead of testing. While optional, both IDOE and Cambium strongly recommend educators view these modules based on their role in summer testing. Please contact the Office of Student Assessment if you have any questions related to training requirements for your staff. The Office of Student Assessment is always focused on helping schools administer assessments to yield valid and reliable student data. The following slides highlight the most common issues and irregularities experienced by schools during the spring 2021 IREAD 3 test window. It is our hope that schools consider these lessons from spring to help ensure a successful test administration for all students this summer. The majority of reported spring IREAD 3 testing irregularities stemmed from an incorrect administration of Segment 1. First, schools must administer Segment 1 to all students. Even hard of hearing students who do not respond to the phonics items in Segment 1 must respond to the items in the latter portion of Segment 1. If these students do not respond to any Segment 1 items, they will not receive any IREAD 3 results. The directions that TAs must use with these students are located in the IREAD 3 TAM. Now, on to the Secure Segment 1 script. TAs must use the Secure Segment 1 script to administer Segment 1 to all other students. The most frequent irregularities reported to our office this spring were related to TAs who did not have access to the Secure Segment 1 script when starting the Segment 1 test session. Many TAs did not realize a separate script existed, where to find it, or why it was needed. As CTCs, it is your responsibility to ensure TAs who will administer IREAD 3 to students this summer have access to the Secure Segment 1 script for summer and understand how and when to use it. If the TA approves students for entry into Segment 1 without the Secure Segment 1 script, the TA must immediately pause all student tests. Once the TA has the Secure Segment 1 script, the TA must instruct students to log back in and finish Segment 1 before the end of the school day. The Secure Segment 1 script for use with the IREAD 3 summer retest will post in CTC's secure inboxes on May 11th. Please review the IREAD 3 TAM with your TAs to understand when the Secure Segment 1 script must be utilized to ensure a proper test administration. Other common irregularities related to the scheduling and expiration of test segments. As noted in the IREAD 3 TAM, IDOE recommends that schools administer segments 1 through 3 in chronological order. However, if the TA mistakenly approves one or more students for segment 2 or 3, for example, allow those students to complete that segment during that test session. The TA can administer the remaining segment to each student during a subsequent session later in the day or later in the test window. Once a student starts a segment, he or she must complete the segment that same day, as it will expire overnight and it cannot be reopened. Should a student become ill during testing or leave the school in the middle of the test session, any responses entered by the student will be scored, but the test opportunity is over once the student leaves school for the day. Schools are required to submit a completed testing irregularity report to IDOE whenever they experience an irregularity. Be sure to complete all fields and include a full description of what occurred and when, the STNs of the students impacted, and the affected test segment. Once our staff is able to review your report, we may contact you for additional information. We will let you know if you should create an irregularity request in TIDE, but ask that you only create an irregularity request in TIDE if and when you receive guidance from our office to do so. Please do not wait to report a testing irregularity to our office. As noted here, test segments expire the same day students access them, so time is of the essence. If you call and do not reach us on the first try, please leave a voicemail message or send an email. Indicate in your message the nature of the irregularity and whether you have students in the testing room at that moment. We will call you back as soon as possible to help you resolve the issue. There are often questions regarding which students should participate in IREAD 3. Let's take a look at participation requirements for the summer retest. The IREAD 3 summer retest is for any student currently enrolled in grade 3 who did not participate in or did not pass the spring IREAD 3 assessment and is not eligible for a good cause exemption. Any current grade 5 student who still needs to pass IREAD 3 and has not been granted a good cause exemption should also participate in the summer retest. Schools should not administer IREAD 3 to any student who has been granted a good cause exemption. Please contact our office with any questions. CTCs must develop and manage local schedules for testing students this summer. The IREAD 3 summer retest windows are available for students testing both online and paper and pencil. The paper and pencil test window will close a week early, so tests can be shipped back to the vendor for scoring and ensure on-time reporting timelines. Schools must determine the appropriate testing dates and times for each student within the larger test window. Each student is limited to one test opportunity during the summer window. IDOE encourages each school to work with parents to identify a mutually agreeable time for student testing. Timing guidance for IREAD 3 is not changing from previous years. IREAD 3 continues to be a timed assessment. While it is possible for students to complete the entire assessment in a single day, IDOE recommends that schools administer it over the course of at least 2 days, if possible. Please monitor student fatigue levels and provide breaks between test sessions. CTCs whose schools will administer the IREAD 3 retest should keep these milestones in mind as they plan for testing this summer. Cambium Assessments Incorporated, or Cambium, is the vendor that deploys IREAD 3 for Indiana students, and their systems are utilized for the administration and reporting of the IREAD 3 assessment. Let's look at these systems now. Cambium systems have 3 branches: the Test Information Distribution Engine, TIDE, the Test Delivery System, TDS, and the Online Reporting System, ORS. All systems are cloud-based and accessed through a single sign-on server. TIDE is considered the hub for all of the testing systems. Student information and testing data are managed in TIDE. Teachers, administrators, and technology coordinators can access student data and monitor testing through TIDE. Student demographic data is populated in TIDE via the nightly file from IDOE to Cambium. TDS consists of the TA interface and student secure browser. TDS delivers the actual test content to students. Finally, ORS provides access to students' test results. CTCs are responsible for providing additional corporation or school-level access to staff for the appropriate systems. Students log into the secure browser using their legal first names, STNs, and the unique session ID provided by the TA. The session ID is generated in the TA interface after starting a session. TAs can provide students with their login credentials using student access cards printed from TIDE, or through any other way you may want to share those pieces of information. Just remember that the combination of a student's name and STN makes a document FERPA protected and therefore secure. Since you administered Spring iLearn and IREAD 3 testing, your school systems, network, and student testing devices are likely already prepared for summer testing. However, please review this slide and check with your technology staff and the Indiana Assessment Help Desk with any questions. It is important for schools to understand how student data is loaded into TIDE. The next few slides serve as reminders for the available supports and accommodations, as well as some nuances specific to IREAD 3. This slide illustrates the flow of student data to TIDE for Cambium assessments. Data in TIDE is populated via the nightly data feed from IDOE, as well as some data that can be updated by schools manually within TIDE. The nightly data file is compiled from several sources. The most important piece of the data puzzle is student enrollment records. If a student does not have a current active DOE-RT or DOE-EM record, then the student will not be in TIDE and cannot be included on any other data submissions. DOE-RT and DOE-EM records populate the list of students on the nightly data file. Other data submissions will then apply student demographics and test eligibility information to students on the nightly data file. CTCs must confirm that student data correctly reflect and tied at least a full day before testing begins. Changes and corrections made in IDOE systems or via a data submission will reflect and tide the following business day. For questions related to state data reporting, the STN Application Center, and the nightly data file, please contact IDOE Data Reporting Help. Their contact details are noted at the bottom of this slide. IDOE developed the 2020-2021 Accessibility and Accommodations Guidance to provide direction regarding accessibility features and accommodations that can be provided to different populations of students. Please reference this document to better understand the supports that can be provided for students. Schools must submit the STNs of students with a hard of hearing accommodation so they can receive an online IREAD test form that excludes the Segment 1 phonics items. Students with this accommodation must take the correct test form so their score will not be negatively impacted. IDOE shared the survey that CTCs must complete to report such students in recent IREAD listservs. The link for the survey is included on this slide. Paper and pencil tests are available as an accommodation only. Schools must transcribe student responses from large print and Braille test books to regular print test books for scoring in order for those responses to be scored. Schools must submit a non-standard accommodation request for students without a formal plan who require the use of a paper test. IDOE must approve all submitted requests before schools may order the paper assessment and tide during the IREAD additional order window. The paper window closes 1 week before online testing to ensure on-time reporting. Paper tests shipped after the published date cannot be scored. CTCs must collect the necessary test administration materials for TAs before testing begins. All TAs must have a copy of the IREAD TAM when administering the assessment to any student population. The TAM contains all practice test scripts and most operational scripts needed for test administration. Upon login to Segment 1, students will not see any questions for the first few items, only answer choices. This is by design. TAs must read aloud the questions for each of these items as outlined in the Secure Segment 1 script. TAs will use the Secure Segment 1 script with all students taking IREAD 3, except for students using the hard of hearing form. TAs administering IREAD 3 to students testing paper and pencil will administer the test using the Secure Read Aloud script for any student who requires a paper test and a human reader accommodation. TAs administering the test to these students must also use the Secure Segment 1 script to administer the phonics items in Segment 1. Both secure scripts will post to CTC's secure inboxes and tide on Tuesday, May 11th, 2 weeks before the summer window opens. Both secure scripts for use with IREAD 3 can be accessed by the CTC, STC, or NPSTC via the TIDE secure inbox. Because these documents contain secure test content, they may not be emailed or saved to local networks. Test coordinators may print these scripts or transfer these scripts to TAs who need them via the new TIDE Secure Inbox document transfer feature. See the TIDE user guide or contact the Indiana Assessment Help Desk for those instructions. Our office will communicate more information about the deployment of these materials very soon. Students must participate in the online practice tests at least once prior to taking the operational tests. Schools may administer the practice test to students ahead of the operational window or during the operational test window if needed, just as long as this occurs before the students complete the operational test. As a reminder, the paper and pencil practice items are contained in a separate segment inside the operational test book. CTCs also have a few responsibilities while students are testing. There are 3 things that you need to carefully monitor during testing. First, remember to track your secure materials. Create a process for materials check-in and check-out, as was discussed in the test security portion of this training. Second, monitor test administration using the protocols. And finally, Monitor test completion. You need to know who is finished and who still needs to test, as well as whether there are students for whom you need to schedule a makeup test session. You can use the test completion reports in TIDE to monitor online completion, but you'll need to follow a local protocol to track paper test completion. CTCs are also responsible for reporting any irregularities that occur while students are testing. When irregularities happen, the CTC or STC must always complete an IDOE testing irregularity report the same day the irregularity occurs. This is the report that is faxed to IDOE. Completing it allows IDOE to most quickly respond and provide support to you as needed. Remember to include affected students' STNs and the test name that was affected, such as IREAD 3 Segment 2, the session ID, or other critical information to yield the quickest resolution. When you have an urgent testing situation, always contact the Office of Student Assessment right away for immediate action. Timing is of the essence during a live testing window. It is imperative that you report any testing irregularities the same day they occur. Please do not wait hours, days, or weeks to report these to our office. We stand the best chance of resolving any issues the sooner we know about them. Now let's discuss the tasks that must be completed after testing has finished. Whether students test online or paper and pencil, there are materials for schools to manage once testing concludes. Schools must transcribe any Braille or large print responses into regular print books so they may be scored. Any materials that are not transcribed to regular print books will not be scored. Follow the transcription directions in the IREAD 3 TAM to complete this task. Be sure to return all used and unused assessment books to the scoring vendor by the published ship by date. Any materials postmarked after the final ship date will not be scored. Finally, you must securely destroy all read aloud scripts, scratch paper, student access cards, accommodations rosters, and unused pre-ID labels as soon as you've completed testing. You do not need to wait for notification from IDOE before destroying or discarding materials. Please review IDOE's Material Return and Destruction Guidance for more details. Discrepant records result any time that a student test attempt cannot be matched with a student in TIDE. This occurs only with paper tests. Often, discrepant records result when the pre-ID label is not affixed to the test book or the pre-ID label is damaged in transit to the scoring vendor. Anytime a test is flagged as discrepant, the front cover of the test book becomes available for the CTC and STC to view in TIDE. A discrepant record cannot be scored or assigned to a student until it is resolved by the school. The final task, once testing concludes, is managing results and reports. Schools will be able to access student results in ORS on June 14th for students who completed online tests by June 13th. After this date, results for students will post in ORS within 24 hours of completing the online test. Schools should share results with students and families as soon as possible upon accessing them from ORS. You can share results using any secure method: printing and mailing, secure electronic transfer, upload to school information systems, or other secure means. Schools should document when and how results are provided to families. Student ISRs and interpretive guides are available in English and 5 other languages. Permissioned school users can access these materials from the Retrieve Student Results section in ORS once student results become available. Cambium will ship student score labels to corporations later in the summer once all online and paper testing is complete and all responses have been processed. Because IREAD 3 is intended to promote action to support students struggling with reading comprehension, this assessment comes with consequences tied to student achievement. Students who pass the assessment continue to grade 4 learning. Students who do not pass may fit into one of 3 categories of action. First, students who do not pass may be retained at the discretion of the local school. As educators, we all realize that retention is a high-impact decision. IDOE highly recommends that high-impact decisions for students be made with the input of multiple data points and not on the basis of a single test score. Therefore, an automatic retention policy is not always recommended. Retention will not be the best response for many students. In those cases, students may be promoted to the next grade, but they must continue to receive grade 3 reading instruction and participate in IREAD 3 retest opportunities the subsequent year. Good cause exemptions allow for flexibility in providing grade 4 reading and literacy instruction for students in specific circumstances. A good cause exemption never removes the requirement for students to participate in the initial assessment. It only removes the requirement for students to participate in future IREAD 3 testing. A good cause exemption may only be granted after viewing a student's valid IREAD 3 results. Those eligible for a good cause exemption include any students who have been retained twice, such as those grade 5 students who have received grade 3 reading instruction while enrolled in grades 4 and 5. Students who have IEPs and ILPs are also eligible for good cause exemptions. Decisions to grant good cause exemptions to eligible students should be made on an individual basis and only after a student has attained a valid IREAD 3 result. Once an exemption is granted, the school should report the exemption to IDOE via the DOE IR submission, and the student should not participate in any future IREAD 3 testing. Regardless of whether they grant an exemption, the school, case conference committee, and/or ILP committee are responsible for determining appropriate grade level placement and instructional next steps for each student. As this training comes to an end, please contact the Office of Student Assessment if you need help understanding participation requirements, reporting test irregularities, or have other questions about the IREAD 3 program. If you experience a technical issue with one of Cambium's online systems, need help finding a script, or want to order an accommodated paper test book, please call the Indiana Assessment Help Desk. This concludes the session. We wish you all a successful test administration this summer. Contact us if you have any questions.